So you heard his voice, and he's here. His name is Barrack Muluka, communication strategist, and joining us in the hot seat of the Situation Room this morning, where conversations definitely do continue. Barrack, good morning.
Morning.
Bonjour.
Comment ça va?
Ça va bien, merci.
Moi, je suis en forme. Et vous?
Ouais, en forme bien. Ok.
Ouais. No habla français.
No habla français. Mix them gather them. No problem.
Mambo.
Good to see you, Barrack.
Good to see you too, and good to see Seta here and my good friend Okari. It's been a while.
It's been a minute, I know.
Yes.
I love the new look.
Yes, I get older. I've got to look like an elder. Older people should be elders.
Okay.
Waswahili Waislamu wanaita sunna.
Bas.
Yes.
What did you say?
Sunna, yes. Sunna, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, just like the Prophet, peace be upon him, did.
Yeah. Ishara ya kifahari tu.
Kabisa.
Na ya hekima.
Okay. Hekima to you too.
No habla Kiswahili.
No habla Kiswahili. Okay. Barrack, so we're having a number of conversations, and I've just been saying that, the last couple of days, we try really hard to be positive. We try really hard to look for the good and to be optimistic. But unfortunately, we keep being served up this buffet of negativity and terrible things actually happening. Sadly, but necessarily, it forms the basis for conversations that we will be having this morning. And we're going to come off an hour where we just had conversations. We're asking questions for certain gaps to be filled about what really is happening which concerns the rule of law. And when we get into this now, looking at the political skew that a lot of these issues take, we'll come to that in a short while. But Dennis is in a country which I know you've been to many times, and that you draw a lot of, I don't know if it's inspiration from, but he'll tell you what that is.
Yeah.
And then we'd like to hear what your interpretation of the problem from this country is.
It is a country that calls itself the Pearl of Africa, whose Minister of Education is the wife to the president. The president who's been in power for over 34 years, almost 40. You know that country?
Well, no prize for that because it is across here.
Yes.
You know Bujagali.
Oh, Bujagali. Hapo kwa kona.
Yeah. There is a President Yoweri Museveni. And there is Janet Museveni, and there is Muhoozi Kainerugaba.
Yeah.
And they are doing just well.
Okay.
Yes, please.
And our proverb comes from that land. The teeth are smiling, but is the heart?
Okot Pabitek wrote a book some years back, which I was privileged to edit and publish. It's titled White Teeth. And he says, white teeth make us laugh in this world. It's not the softness of our innards, of our insides that makes us laugh. It's the whiteness of our teeth. That there are so many things to be unhappy about. But because we have white teeth, sometimes even when we just show them, we look like we are laughing, even when we are crying. So Ndu should not be very troubled about when we seem to be persistently pessimistic. If the house is on fire, we cannot pretend that everything is fine. We must address that fire, otherwise it will engulf the whole edifice in the proper order of time. So, white teeth make us laugh in this world.
Indeed. I love it. I guess that's what you do. It's why you do what you do, Barrack. It's clear. Look, conversations are necessary for us to have. We can't be like the proverbial ostrich that buries its head in the sand when we see things happening. And what conversation does is that it brings things to the fore, and that one of two things happen, I say, is that you keep those things present by continuing the conversation, or that you move somebody in their capacity in one way or another to do something about these issues. The country plunged into yet another state of despair when a young man was killed. According to police reports themselves, that he died while at the Central Police Station. He didn't die of natural causes, neither did he kill himself. It was clear what happened. But somehow we seem to then be able to use that to colour the political picture in the country. And indeed, we talk about the fact that it's necessary for us to talk about these things because they are actually happening. If the home is on fire, we need to figure out, are you going to run away from it, or are you going to look for water to douse out the flames?
Yes, it's 1,001 days today since President William Ruto took the oath of office. I was talking to my followers on social media, telling them that we are going to be talking about 1,001 days. Alf Lela, Ulela, the famous Arabian Nights entertainment vis-a-vis Alf Lela, Ulela. And it's been one season, as I have called it, a season of Anomy, a season in which the state is in social disorder. There is very little to be cheerful about. I think if you ask the people who are within the establishment, they will tell you about microeconomic indicators. They will talk about growth, they will talk about inflation, they will talk about per capita income, and they will by and large attempt to show you how everything has been on the positive trend. We are reminded of George Orwell, where he says in Animal Farm that it was statistics upon statistics. It was as if the farm had become very prosperous without the animals themselves experiencing any of that prosperity. Because eventually we have got to look at the social indicators. We have got to look at things like liberty, as the Americans would say. We have got to look at life, and we have got to look at pursuit of happiness. Are we able to be happy in our circumstances? And it has been 1,001 days when we have steadily been sinking into the abyss. We see elements of Stalinism in the state. That even as we come here every day and we speak and we do whatever it is we are doing, we are not so sure what the state is going to do to us next. But we cannot be...
What does that mean, Barrack? You just said we're going towards Stalinism, and of course, you know, for those who have not studied these ideologies, open that up a little bit for us. Number one. Number two, you say we don't know what the state is going to do to us next.
Yeah, we are talking about a state that is steadily moving from authoritarianism to totalitarianism. A state that is moving towards godifying the head of state, that we are seeing a president around whom there is a cult. And even James Orengo was talking some months back about praise and worship. Never mind that he has eventually been cornered, and he is now ensconced in that space of praise and worship, that there is a rising personality cult around the head of state whose praises must be sung. You have seen an elected member of parliament leading a group of yahoos, hoodlums, who beat up an MCA in Kitui, and who has told us that there's going to be a freedom of expression that is guaranteed, but we cannot guarantee you freedom after expression. In which case, therefore, we are being encouraged to live in a permanent state of fear. That is what the state wants. That is Stalinism. That you are talking about a state-driven terror, basically to infuse the sentiment of fear in people so that they keep quiet, they are subdued. As Samia Suluhu would say, tuthibitiwe. Wanajaribu kututhibiti kwa kutuweka hofu, ili tunyamaze, tusizungumze maovu yanapotendeka. Tukizungumza tuwe ni watu wa kusifu. That we only say that this is good, how wise. You know, once again, to go back to George Orwell, Animal Farm, that even when we drink water, we should say, oh, how sweet this water tastes, thanks to the wise leadership of President William Ruto. That is Stalinism. That is creating of a cult. That is discouraging people from embracing the truth. That is discouraging people from embracing the spirit of liberty, the spirit of pursuit of happiness, as I said, as the Americans would say. And Stalinism will always have certain elements around it where you have characters, and I'm happy that Aseto, you started by taking us to Uganda. We go back to Uganda, we will remember characters like Mali ya Mungu, characters like Bob Assols. President Yoweri Museveni across the border will know about Bob Assols. He will know about General Mali ya Mungu. President Samia Suluhu might just have an idea about who Bob Assols was. I doubt very much that she would know in any significant depth. President William Ruto would probably draw a complete blank. But they are all festooned with latter-day Mali ya Mungus, latter-day Bob Assols, who are doing the dirty work for them.
But Barrack, must it get here? Must it be this bad? Because it is a leadership and a president that fashioned itself on the respect of the rule of law. We will change things, we will not see people disappear. And one would ask the question, why aren't we seeing fidelity to the constitution, the rule of law? Why aren't we seeing fidelity and the respect of human rights in a country such as Kenya? Should it be this bad?
It is the philosophy of government in the individual in power. Unfortunately, we are seeing even in the United States of America that the person who occupies the highest office in the land is very critical for the direction that the country takes. That person will make or destroy the country, the nation. The philosophy in that person, I think the philosophy in government in Kenya today is a philosophy of creating an oligarchy. A newly arrived oligarchy. That an oligarchy, of course, as we know, is a government by super rich individuals. And President William Ruto would appear to be focused singularly on creating an oligarchy, converting himself into an oligarchy. And as Orwell again would say in a different publication, 1984, it is about oligarchical collectivism. What do I mean by oligarchical collectivism? That you look at certain social groups and you try to collectivize them into that space of a newly arrived wealthy class in power. And you are seeing, therefore, in our context, that we are encouraging ourselves to develop into competing ethnically organized streams. There's now a new one that is calling itself the stream of cousins. Okay? Versus the stream of Nilots. And we cannot afford to take the country into that kind of polarity.
It's there, Barrack.
it is being nurtured.
Yeah, unfortunately.
It is in its puppy stage. If ethnicity eventually develops into some kind of dogmatism, what we are witnessing now is what I could call puppyism. It will eventually mature into dogmatism. And when it gets to that point, God have mercy upon all of us. And therefore, we must resist it. A bad thing is bad, Aseto, Kare. It doesn't matter whether it is in the hands of President William Ruto, or it is in the hands of Raila Odinga, or it is in the hands of Rigathi Gachagua. We cannot embrace certain things and say that this is where we want to go. For example, I think it is patently wrong to collectivize and demonize a whole community of people because of the sins of omission and commission on the part of a few individuals. If Mr. Odinga and Dr. Ruto will come together and start talking about some kind of nilotic alliance that they want to be on a common ticket in 2027, it would be equally wrong to attempt to mobilize people of the so-called Bantu-speaking nations. I belong to the Bantu-speaking community of this country, and I can confess that there are some of them with whom we completely lack mutual intelligibility, linguistically speaking. Even culturally, we are very far. Emmanuel, where I come from, we are closer to the Luo in Yala, culturally speaking, than we are to the Meru, for example, Mount Kenya. And I think that has got everything to do with their proximity. And now, what you'd call centuries of our people, diverse peoples living together, we are also closer to the Nandi people in certain respects, again, out of that propinquity, as historians would call it, being within that neighborhood and having some levels of cultural tolerance and integration. So when you come up and you start telling me that I should distance myself from the Luo, from the Nandi, because you and I are cousins, that is wrong. But where is the original sin? The original sin resides in State House with President William Ruto, who is patently an ethnic supremacist. So that's where...
I need you to elucidate a little bit more. When you talk about the president being an ethnic supremacist, what would then have happened that would lead you to that conclusion?
Ethnic supremacy is not an end in itself. It's a means to an end. And the end is what we have described here before and elsewhere as Prebendalism. Prebendalism is that practice. First, it starts as a philosophy and then it moves into practice. It is that philosophy and practice that is founded around the belief that when you occupy office as a position of power, one of your foremost benefits is the opportunity to externalize public resources for personal gain. That this thing which we call corruption is in fact in the eyes of its votaries and those who practice it. It's in their eyes one of the benefits of being in power. So you can demonize it as much as you would like, but they are saying that you are demonizing that which is rightly theirs. Extra-legal, sometimes completely unlawful access to public resources for personal, private gain. And what is the best way to externalize public resources from public coffers for personal gain? Is to have reliable homeboys and home girls in the key places.
To do what, though?
To externalize. I'm using this expression, externalize, very delicately. I could deconstruct it completely so that at the end of the day, it will morph into to steal, to be a thief. But we don't want to look at the people in office in the colors of thieves. So let us look at them as our externalizers. So they are externalizing public resources for their own use. And you need homeboys and homegirls who are compliant, not just any homeboy, not just any homegirl. And that is where negative ethnicity, as Koigi or Mwere calls it, becomes not an end in itself. It is a vehicle that is going to deliver these things.
And I want you to tie this for me, because and ways in which this can be exemplified. I think we have that. If we take the collective government, I refuse to call it broad-based, the collective government that we see now, would you essentially say that Raila Odinga then has become, I forget the term that you used, essentially part of the choir?
It's part of the...
To fan the flames of this thing. To forget essentially what they have stood for before. And I'm going to delicately bring this in. We bring the case in of yesterday, where the police came forward and then, to a certain extent, admitted that there was death of this young person, of this Albert Odrang. I'm going to call his name Albert Odrang, who died in the police station. It was interesting, and I know, follow me here, but the calls then were that if Raila Odinga and his sentinels, right, were really for the people, and this was somebody who died from their area, that they would have had a louder voice had it really been a collective government. This is the conversation. It's a real one that's happening today. And it continues to split people alongst these tribal lines. That here we are and we're seeing the tragic murder of a young man. And folks are saying, if we actually had leaders coming from our area, we would hear that they would be for support, number one, and that there would be a huge calling out of the government of the day because of this thing.
Raila Odinga is now caught up squarely in a cage. It's the cage of silence. He's now a resident in the trap of silence, where he has got to keep quiet and he has got to encourage those around him to issue decibels, sound bites and sentiments that are pro the state. To tell people like Edwin Sifuna, usikue kali sana, because the center has moved. We are no longer where we were. Sifuna, usikue kali sana. Nyamaza. For his brother, his sibling, elder brother, and I want to believe one of the co-advisors, to tell James Orengo, keep quiet. We are now in government. We are eating. To say himself, Mr. Odinga, that this is the government that we have and we shall not wait for another government. To have people like John Buddy screaming themselves hoarse, almost bursting arteries and veins, addressing Sifuna and telling him, what do you want? To have people like Peter Kaluma, people like Junaid Mohammed, looking like they have undergone brain surgery and they have had brain transplants that has put into their heads the brain of Oscar Sudi, or a clone of the brain of Oscar Sudi, or they look like they have been cloned from Oscar Sudi and Cherargei and Farouk Kibet and other Bob Assels and Mali mali ya mungus. Now Bob Assos in Kenya is an educated individual who has gone to exclusive academies, who has gone to good schools, who has gone to good universities, and who is doing a mali ya mungu Rasputin job for the state. So if Mr. Odinga, truly speaking, was still believing in what he believed in the past, I think they're right. The sentiment from that fraternity would be different. But Mr. Odinga, and this is why I encourage us to interact widely and deeply with knowledge. When you look at the dystopia that Orwell, and I think today Orwell is the point of reference, paints in the narrative titled 1984, you have this Winston Smith, who is a dissent, who operates contrary to the whims of the totalitarian state. But when the state catches up with him and takes him through the transformation processes, at the end of it, we have him shedding what Orwell calls a gin-scented tear, G-I-N, gin-scented tear. His tear smells
of gin.
He sheds a gin-scented tear, and he wonders why he wasted so many years on the wrong side of the divide. And the book concludes with the words, he loved Big Brother. Mr. Odinga loves Big Brother, and he's shepherding what have been his troops to get into the space where they love Big Brother. And Big Brother, William Ruto, is just a metaphor of Big Brother in the Kenyan context, because Big Brother is the system and the entity that has exercised draconian rule over the Kenyan people, the entity that has rode roughshod through us. So I think we need to get to the point where we surrender Mr. Odinga to the fraternity in which he is, to understand him as a newborn Odinga, a born-again Raila Odinga. You know, to be born again, you can be born again on either side of salvation. You can be born again into the kingdom of Lucifer, or you can be born again into the kingdom of Jesus Christ. He's a renegade, someone who reneges, who runs away from what he previously believed in, a retrograde that degenerates steadily. And that entity called ODM is in the process of retrogression, where it even contemplates, as I have seen in the daily press today, that they're talking of a Trump card, talk of Ruto-Raila ticket that sparks debate. And therefore, when things like abductions, murder, mayhem do overrun us, he will be silent. And after a few days, he will speak of other things and say, this is the government that we have. We will not wait for another government. And indeed, it is the government that they have, because he is in that space without portfolio, without responsibility. His older brother, who is an octogenarian, is a youth leader in that government. His nephew, who is in the 40s, gravitating towards the 50s, and whose credentials remain unknown. At least they are not known to me. I didn't see him in the academies where I was educated. I didn't see him in my classes, and I don't know which classes he attended. He is an advisor to the president, to His Excellency, the president. And there are others within that familial environment who are part of the present dispensation, and they're saying, we are eating. An eating mouth cannot be a speaking mouth.
Someone said you can't eat and speak at the same time. And so, Barrack, my question is, you used a very interesting word, that we seem to be moving from authoritarian to totalitarian states. And I was very quick to just check this political system in which the state essentially holds total authority over society and seeks to control all aspects of life, public and private, wherever possible. And I was looking at the countries under this title, and 3 examples in history. Nazi Germany under Adolf Hitler, Soviet Union under Joseph Stalin that you mentioned, and North Korea under Kim Jong-un. Now, when I looked at the key characteristics of these 3 countries in your example, is one, you have the issue of centralized power, where a single party or a single leader holds absolute power, e.g. a dictator, okay? Then you have no political freedom, censorship and propaganda, surveillance, control over economy and society, use of fear and force. My question then is, because all these characteristics, we never really used to have them, or maybe we did at some point in time, but when I was looking at all these things, I'm just seeing Kenya. My question is, were we all along going to end up here, or is this situation circumstantial? We've had guests here we've interviewed, and we keep asking, when you people are working, for example, with President Ruto in this case, didn't you see or didn't you know that this was a character in him before election, or you discover this much later now that he's president? So were we all along going to end up here anyway, or is this circumstantial? Something triggered something that is now leading us to be in this space. It's only Tuesday, and our heads are hurting because of the headlines we keep saying and the news reports that are coming from everywhere in the country.
Yes, the headlines are not the problem. The headlines are only mirror images of the problem. The problem is being incubated in some space where it is growing steadily, and they are the owners of that problem. Was it always going to be like this? Lord Acton, it was, who said famously that power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts. Absolutely. Power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts. Absolutely. That is why, and that is coming to the question you are asking, Dennis, that is why when the president is being sworn in, he or she holds that which they consider to be most sacred in the hand and vows that they are going to protect the Constitution, that they are going to serve according to the law, and nitaitetea katiba. What do they mean when they say, I will protect the Constitution? They don't mean that they are going to protect that Constitution against you or from me or from some invaders from Mars. They're actually vowing that they are going to protect the Constitution from themselves and from the allures of power, because power corrupts.
Naturally.
Naturally, when you get there, you have got to exercise self-censorship all the time. Remind yourselves when your appetites start driving you towards amassing more power, exercising more power than you are allowed, or abusing the power that you have, because that person has authority to do certain things. And when they start exercising that authority in an extra-legal manner, drawing a distinction between illegal and extra-legal, because extra legal means that it's got trappings of legality, of legalisms. So you start exercising that authority in an extra legal manner. You start becoming authoritarian. And after a while, you institutionalize misuse now of authority. You become an institution yourself, even as an individual. And you become bigger than that office that you occupy. The presidency, in fact, now comes below you. You no longer occupy the presidency because the presidency is circumscribed with certain limitations, certain checks and balances. But now you sit on top of that institution, and people come and worship you. Even those who have been in opposition against you, like Mr. Odinga, they begin singing your praises. They take you to Luo Nyanza and tell people there how you are God's gift to the country, and you actually yourself start believing that you are God's gift. So was it always going to be like this? Our history from 1963 to where we are is replete with attempts of people to godify themselves, and resistance against that idolization, self-idolization, and being idolized by sycophants around you, who then spread the spirit of fear into the community. And they use various instruments. They will use fear, they will use bribery, they will use intimidation, and you can see that the bribery has gone deep into the innermost recesses of what are supposed to be our sacrosanct institutions, that church leaders will sit at the dais there and they will be nodding in affirmation as vitriol is spewed from the pulpit, and they will even clap. That's why I'm talking about a season of anomy, that we have gotten to a point where the values that should be bringing us together are collapsing. So has it always been like this? Yes, but it has always met resistance. And here we need to educate the Gen Zs a little bit, who have imagined that the struggle has commenced with them. When they see this gray beard, they should know that this struggle has been there for very many years, and we are witnesses now to history. It's just that it is now their turn as the youthful population to occupy certain spaces in these competed for spaces and help to sustain the struggle to keep the country on the sober path.
Barrack.
And so, as I conclude with a footnote, Seto. And so, there are those constitutional changes, 1965 to 1969, the pejoration within that period. And after that, there is the autocracy that sets in the post-Kenyatta years, the transformation of the country from a de facto one-state dictatorship to a de jure, a by-law one-state dictatorship, the reversal of that in 1991, and the efforts between 1992 and 2010 to bring a new constitution. And now the struggle the forces of liberation to protect the constitution, and the forces of pejoration to destroy the constitution, to kill devolution, to kill democracy.
Barrack, you talked about fidelity to the Constitution. We talked about the rule of law. And there is the fact that it is the people who have the absolute power, because it is even the people who give the Constitution power to operate. Yet here we have a leadership that is going against all that, including the respect of human rights. And one thing that is being said right now, ukienda kupiga kura, beba ID, lakini ubebe pia akili. As we head to, as we're having this discourse, what will it take for Kenyans to finally go vote using their heads, and how do we reclaim the power that we have been given? We've given ourselves through the Constitution.
The thing it takes is already there.
Mm-hmm.
The Beba Akili is already there. The preponderant population of voters, if the state does not succeed in disenfranchising them, as it is likely to attempt to do, is going to be the population that you are seeing online. The millennials, the Gen Zs, the later generation Xs. And a few enlightened baby boomers like myself. I flatter myself with it.
Okay.
That, I'm an enlightened baby boomer. They're the majority. They're already having their conversations, and the resistance is in fact in the cyberspace, in the digital space. When you do not see them, and the state should not delude itself with the comfort of thinking that it's not seeing the Generation Z in the streets. They are elsewhere. This is the digital age. President Ruto has told us that we are Africa's Silicon Savannah.
Yep.
That if you go up this road a few kilometers away, you will find the Konza Technopolis.
Yes.
Up the road, and young people are in conversations. In fact, if anything, when we talk about things called revolutions, we are already in the middle of a revolution, and it is a digital revolution. The owners talk about it as the fourth industrial revolution, 4IR. And it is changing the world. When the new generations want to stop the autocrats, they will not stop them in the streets. They will stop them in the cyberspace. As you talk about the digital economy, and doesn't anybody in State House understand this whole thing they are talking about? There's a whole ministry under William Kabogo. Previously, there was Eliud Owalo, whom I unsuccessfully attempted to advise. When they talk about this digital economy and they brag about putting 10,000 government services online, are they aware that the Gen Zs can bring that house of cards down by just touching one button and put them in a state of permanent paralysis? The revolution does not have to be bloody. It does not have to
have casualties.
The form that because that is primitive. It comes quite close to what they are doing, going all the way to Homa Bay to grab a young man and bring him 400 kilometers away, as if there are no police stations between Homa Bay and Nairobi. They could even have taken him to a police station in Kisumu, or a police station in Awasi, or a police station in Nakuru, if there was even fear of reprisals from the local environment. So Dennis, in short, what it will take, it is taking. But there's a conclusive footnote there. Democracy is not about the casting of the ballot. democracy is a way of life. Do we operate in democratic space where we can breathe, we have access to opportunities, where there is transparency, there's accountability, where the state is not, the executive is not in permanent effort to kill independent institutions, wrestling with the Auditor General, wrestling with the controller of budget, wrestling with the media, wrestling with the free voices in society, striving to silence them, wrestling with the youth, murdering them.
Is that how power is taken? Because these things that we speak about, and we're looking at now, the deconstructing a lot of these voices that we see, which would otherwise be independent, Barrack. Is that how power is taken? Whether we look at the examples that you've given of Stalinism and authoritarianism, totalitarianism, all of these things that we see. Is that how power is taken? Deconstructing what would be within a democratic space free independent voices. When you deconstruct them, they are powerless, and whatever power is left on the ground you take. Is that how we get to those isms?
That is how power attempts to be grabbed, and the free voices will usually only appear to be powerless for a time, a short while, because the entire grain of history, from Stone Age to artificial intelligence, demonstrates very clearly that totalitarians will last for a short while. In the end, they will fall. It doesn't matter whether you are Mussolini, you are Hitler, you are the Ayatollah, you are Shah Reza Mohammed Pahlavi, you are Jean-Claude Duvalier, you are Ferdinand Marcos, you are Mobutu Sese Seko, you are Masias Nguema, you are Jean Bidel Bokassa. It doesn't matter who you are as a totalitarian, whether you are Nicholas II, whether you are Louis XVI, you will collapse, you will fall. And the bigger tragedy for you is that your subsequent generations then become pariahs. They become nomads wandering across the ends, the four corners of the world as beggars.
Should be a masterclass. But we want to thank you for being here this morning. It's clear, a number of things. And that's why we started out in the beginning of this, Barrack, by saying we need to keep talking about these things. Thank you so much for being here this morning. The state of where we are is one that needs to be recognized, acknowledged, and continued in discourse. Dr. Barrack Muluka, communication strategist, has been here with us this morning. It's 9:01. Good morning.
This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day.